We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Friday, and I have the benefit of having a guest on the show today. He's a listener. His name is TJ, and he's been on the show before. He wears a lot of hats, as we were talking about before. We went on. He's a musician, he plays in bands, he represents a plumbers union. He's done a lot of shit. TJ, welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming in and giving me a hand today.
Sure, Mike, it's your number one plumber. I'm coming to you live from my mom's basement. I'm just kidding. That's what the Trumplefucks say. Every time I
Yeah.
go after them, anything on social media, they accuse me of living in my mom's basement.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up before we get into what's going on, and there's plenty going on. Every so often, you'd send me a DM on how you would go in and taunt some Trumplefucks and wherever they hang out, some mossy under rock locations. You tend to go there and give them some shit. You end up getting kicked out. This sounds like you do this frequently.
Yeah, I do it probably weekly when I
Wow.
got some time scrolling through TikTok and I'll stop on something. There's this one guy, I call him Colonel Sanders' grandson. I can't think of what his TikTok name is, but he has like a little like beard with a mustache, and he has an accent like he's from Louisiana. It's Patriot something. I don't know what it is, but
Of
I
course it
go in and
is.
mess with him and some of these other creators that yeah. Yeah, of course it is. So I go in and mess with them. And it's not even hard. I mean, you just hit them with the truth and they lose their minds because they don't want you in there telling the truth. So they'll have their mods kick me out or whatever, or they'll come back with a stupid retort like, you're a libtard, this and that, you don't know what you're talking about, you're brainwashed. But it's because they hate facts and they can't accept the truth of what's really going on. And it's mind-boggling to think that after everything that's happened with Donald Trump, these people are still following him, even though you have to be a total inept idiot to think that Donald Trump is not guilty of what he's done.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're basically a troll, not unlike the Trumplefuck trolls that come see us, but in reverse. And what you just
Yeah.
said
But I
about they can't trust the facts, they won't believe the facts. That's the same thing they say about us. You know that, right? They think what they have are the facts, and that's how stupid they
sure,
are.
right. Like space lasers and all the ridiculous QAnon conspiracies. And, you got to do your own research, even though it's not from a reliable source. I mean, it's moronic. I mean, it's fascinating. And I think that probably, psychologists and psychiatrists and researchers are probably going to study this time period because of how this propagandized thing just swelled and swelled and swelled to the point where they tried to overthrow our democracy. I mean, this is people don't realize what a historic time that we're living in right now because of what is happening with these people. I mean, it's unsettling, but I think we'll be through it hopefully here the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think we will. When we first got into this Trump era thing and the cult was starting to show their teeth, somebody asked me, where do these people come from? I've never heard of anybody like this. And I likened them to another group of people. Now, I want you to understand, I'm not talking shit about the business because I like it, but it's about pro wrestling, especially since before pro wrestling announced that it was entertainment, because there were people back in the day during wrestling in its heyday. People thought that shit was real. I mean, when I was 6 and 7 years old with my brother wrestling on the floor, I was mad. It was serious. But of course, you get older and more mature, like fucking 10, and then you realize it's more of a show and it's more of it's not actually true. But that's kind of the mentality you're dealing with when you're dealing with Trumpifucks. They don't care about the facts. They like what they like. They're hearing what they like. And instead of deciding whether it's true or not, they just jump on board because they like what they hear.
Oh yeah, 100%. And when you confront them and ask them questions, then they really lose their minds because they can't answer any of them. You know, they say, "Oh, Joe Biden's destroying the country." I'm like, "Based on what? Based on what?" He's the most pro-labor president in 70 years. In Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, Joe Biden offered his full support, and the governor of the state, Josh Shapiro, offered their full support, and the Pennsylvania State Building Trades got that I-95 open in 12 days. It was incredible. And they try to make this false reality. Oh, Joe Biden's policies are ruining America. Okay, well, which ones? And they can't ever answer it. I'm like, the CHIPS Act? The CHIPS Act right now is about to create 7,000 construction jobs. And I'm in the building trades union, so I know that. And that project will last 10 years. It's 1,200 acres and billions of dollars. And this is the false reality that they live in. You know, the bipartisan infrastructure bill for Pennsylvania, we got $6.6 billion for transportation, for investments in roads, bridges, public transportation, ports, airports. But they when you tell them that, they just like that, you know, they can't process it. No, that's not true. I didn't see that. You don't see that because you don't pay attention to reality, you know. And it's like talking to my dog. Like I'll get the same response. They don't have a response.
The old health,
You know, I don't get frustrated by it. I just kind of laugh.
the old
Yeah,
head tilt.
I don't get
about.
yeah. Yeah, like that. My dog does that. What are you talking about? Exactly. And they can't process reality because they don't hear reality. They hear what Sean Hannity tells them and lies to them. You know, it's really ridiculous. I mean, I don't know
Well, I think
how these people can be that sheltered from reality.
the biggest problem with Trumplefucks is they're so ill-informed. And I've said this before about this country. The reason we're divided is because everybody gets their information from different sources, and every source gives different information or omits certain information. And that's exactly what Fox does. You know, you're talking about things with infrastructure. Now, how they don't understand this. The infrastructure was passed by Joe Biden with Democratic votes. Not one Republican voted for that infrastructure, yet they're trying to take credit and they're enjoying the fruits of this infrastructure money. How that does not make them understand that they're dealing with a party who does nothing.
Well, that's because they can't govern. They don't know how to govern.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the problem. They don't know how
Well,
to govern.
but yeah, well, at least they finally elected a Speaker of the House. They finally got that accomplished, which I'm kind of shocked at the fact that they did that. You know, that Mike Johnson, I call him Micro Johnson. That name kind of suits him really well, I think. But, you know, look at the guy that they elected as Speaker of the House. He's an election denier. He's vehemently anti-LGBTQ. And I'm a little shocked because there's a congressman here that's a Republican out near Philadelphia, Brian Fitzpatrick. And like I'll use your words, he's kind of a Republican of a reasonable mind. And he actually supported him, which I think is weird. Yeah, I think it's weird because Fitzpatrick supports same-sex marriage. He believes in climate change. He's against gerrymandering. He didn't support Trump as a nominee, and he voted to hold Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. So, like, I'm kind of surprised that Fitzpatrick went along with this guy because this he's dangerous. I mean, it's weird because this guy, like,
he's basically Jim Jordan, but he's quieter and maybe a little more polished. He's less experienced, but he doesn't come off quite as loud as Jim Jordan does. But he's equally as dangerous in terms of his process. And that struck me interesting too, because like you say, I was surprised he got the 217 votes. I really believed, and I was wrong again about the alleged reasonable minded Republicans. I thought, they're not going to want to vote for another Trump-la-fuck Jim Jordan copy. They aren't going to do that. But I wonder now if they were so panicked at this point because they were looking so foolish, 3 weeks without a Speaker of the House, they couldn't come together. They just figured this guy was quiet enough that maybe they could slip this one by. So they just all voted for it to get it done, because if we don't, we'll shut down the country and all of that stuff. I think it was a panic vote, and I think it was a misjudgment because they're all going to pay the price for it.
Well, yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think that probably the majority, now that you subtract MAGA from it, but the majority of the Republicans in Congress don't want the government to shut down. That's a disaster for them because they know it's going to crush them. I mean, they're already crushed in the election, but they're going to get crushed even deeper, And this guy, this Johnson, I looked into it a little bit, and he's got a pretty seedy background. I mean, he was the spokesperson for this evangelical legal Christian group, the Alliance Defense Fund, and they got designated a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. I mean, surprise, surprise, another fascist, right? So in 2003, he wrote an amicus brief in a Supreme Court case, Lawrence v. Texas, and it was a case that it was about same-sex consensual sex, and he wrote an amicus brief that said it should be criminalized because same-sex sexual contact is more likely to spread sexually transmitted diseases than heterosex, which really doesn't make any sense. No. But this guy is a bigot, and he's a danger to LGBTQ people everywhere.
Republicans in general.
He's an election to.
Republicans in general are a danger to our society and the people in it. That's what I've always said about people like him. And I suggested what we needed to do. A guy like this has kind of flown under the radar. Nobody knew who he was. And he's highly religious. And typically when you get somebody like that who comes to the forefront and is overtly religious, those tend to be the most despicable motherfuckers there are. So there needs to be a deep dive on him, like what you were just talking about, and expose this motherfucker. He'll be, like Donald Trump, sorry that he ever rose to this level, because first of all, he'll be exposed for all his sins, as it were, and he will be an utter failure over the next year, because let's be honest, that's all the longer he's going to be there. His career that might have had some possibilities will be over after this year run as Speaker of the House.
Yeah, when the next election, when November comes around, that'll be the end of him. Right. Excuse me. For sure, it'll be the end of him. And it'll be the end of a lot of Republicans, I think. Some of the crazy ones. We'll see, there's some on the fence. I think that Lauren Boebert could be taken out in the next election when she's up. But I noticed today that George Santos got drug out on the floor in Congress. That Anthony D'Esposito, the Republican from New York, he made a resolution to expel Santos on the floor today, which I thought was amazing that they came out and did that. I'm kind of shocked that they would do that now, because they need his vote. But we'll see if it has traction and it goes anywhere. But they need to get that guy out of there. He's just a straight criminal. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that they have. I can't believe it.
I read someplace, and I didn't read it in depth, so I don't know if it's true or if it's just clickbait. But somebody said that Jim Jordan already attempted to block him being kicked out of Congress. I don't know if that's true. I don't even know if that he can do that, but I'd be surprised if they actually do kick him out. I mean, this D'Esposito guy, he's a pretty reasonable guy, but there's enough unreasonable people in the Republican Party, they may override what he's doing. I wanted to bring up something about the new speaker. He said something in a speech after he was elected Speaker of the House. He was talking about how he was ordained to be the Speaker of the House. There are no coincidences. We're all ordained to do the will of God. And I wish I had the opportunity to ask him a question, Because I would ask him this, I would say, okay, if you were ordained to be Speaker of the House, are you then telling me that God ordained Nancy Pelosi and all the Democrats that passed all those bills? Or are you telling me that God only ordains Republicans? Please, motherfucker, don't hide behind your God and take things out of the Bible and pervert them to fit your fucking narrative. You are the worst of the worst. And God had nothing to do with this. Or here's another thought. If after a year as Speaker of the House, you are an utter failure and the Republicans get wiped out in the 2024 election, is it then God's will to punish you, you dirty motherfucker? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah. Well, how about this? This is the bigger question. If he's and I watched that and I kind of puked in my mouth while he was talking. But the bigger question is, if he was ordained by God to be Speaker of the House, shouldn't he have been Speaker before Kevin McCarthy was?
Yeah, he was fourth in line. So God said, here's the plan. We're going to run three guys through and make them fail, but we're going to give this guy, the ordained guy, a shot after three tries. Yeah, that's how that worked out.
So what's he saying? God fucked up or what? That's all I can derive from that.
I don't know. I said
it just doesn't make
in my TikTok, and I'm surprised it didn't get taken down. I said, well, I know God too, and he thinks you fucking suck. Just saying. But the thing about it is that a lot of people are really worried about this guy being Speaker of the House. I'm not. How do you feel about it? Do you think he's going to be dangerous? I don't.
No, I don't think so. I mean, the crazy stuff, they'll never get it through. And even if they did, the really crazy stuff, it's going to die in the Senate. So I'm not really like the Republicans don't have any real power in the House. Their majority is so slim that it's going to be tough to get anything that was crazy through, and even if it went through, like I said, it's going to die in the Senate. There's no way they're going to get it through there. So I'm not worried about it at all, to be honest. I think he's just, all he is a puppet, and he's going to do, I'm sure that he's probably going to do the will of MAGA and Donald Trump because that's his people, but they're not going to get anything done. And the one thing they're definitely not going to get done, at least not in my opinion, is they're not going to shut down the government.
No,
that's their worst nightmare and the Republicans will take the total blame. They can try to deflect that and blame the Democrats and blame Joe Biden, but it's not going to work. Like, Americans aren't that stupid to believe something so ridiculous. So I honestly, all he's going to be is an ineffective puppet. That's all he's going to be.
That's all he's going to be. And just regarding the budget situation, I'll say this. Kevin McCarthy went in, talked to Joe Biden. Kevin McCarthy has some experience. Joe Biden has 50 years experience. By the time Joe Biden got done with Kevin McCarthy, he turned him inside out. When this fucking clown, who's only been in politics since 2016, sits down with Joe Biden, that fucker will come out looking like a pretzel because Joe Biden knows how to play a dumb motherfucker like this. I don't think he has a chance. The government won't be shut down because the people that will suffer the most other than us will be the Republicans. And it will just be another nail in the coffin for the Republican Party in 2024.
Oh, 100%. And Joe Biden will eat him for lunch. There's no doubt about it. And, the Trump-lefucks and the MAGAs and all these people, they don't believe that because they think that Joe Biden is mentally diminished and he has dementia and all this stuff. And I said last time I was on this show, which was back around the midterms, which has been a while, but right before the election, I was with Joe Biden and I met with Joe Biden. And I can assure you, and any Trump listeners that are out here, Joe Biden is as sharp as a razor. Yeah. I spent about an hour with him and I had a great conversation with him, and he is not anything about like what the Trump-lefucks describe him as. He's as sharp as a razor, and his wit and everything is amazing. Like he's on top of things. And they think that he's going to be ineffective against them. They're sorely mistaken.
Let me say this about the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. See if you agree with this. I'll say it first, and then I'll tell you why after I get your response. I not only am not afraid of Mike Johnson being Speaker of the House, I think it may be the very best thing that ever happened to the Democrats. It will be beneficial to this country and the Democrats in the long run by having that dumb fuck as Speaker of the House. What are your thoughts about that?
I agree with that because of his lack of experience. They even got Kevin McCarthy. Well, at least the president got Kevin McCarthy to bend a little bit, and that pissed off Matt Gaetz, and that's why he got removed. Now this Micro Johnson guy, he doesn't have anywhere near the experience of Kevin McCarthy, and I don't honestly think that he's any smarter than Kevin McCarthy. So his lack of experience, I think that the Democrats are just going to play him like a fiddle.
Yeah.
And he's going to bend and break in every direction.
In addition to that, here's why I think it's a good thing. Because he is so MAGA, he's going to be spewing a lot of things. He's going to talk about abortion. He's going to talk about LGBTQ. He's going to talk about taking away Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. These are all trigger points to the vast majority of the voters in this country. All these people, the Republican trying to say, oh, we're not trying to cut Medicare and Social Security. Now they can't do that because this guy is going to be spewing it. And this guy has no power to actually accomplish anything. So he'll be spewing that out into the ether, never accomplishing anything. And people are going to be better informed in 2024, and they're going to be scared to death of the Republican Party.
Yeah, I'd agree with that 100%. 100%. They're gonna lose it, and you know what's gonna happen? You're gonna start seeing this come, May, June. They're gonna be at it again with their rhetoric on everywhere, social media. Oh, it's gonna be a big red wave. It's gonna be a big red wave. Donald Trump's gonna win the election, and the Republicans are going to take back the Senate, and they're going to take more seats in the House. And they believe that after all they've done. Like they took they took the one thing that they campaigned on forever and ever and ever, the big boogeyman. They took and killed the boogeyman. They took Roe versus Wade and they overturned it. They never thought about it. They just did it. And the one thing that they could campaign on to help them get to their base, they lost that now. Yeah. So now they pissed off 70% of the people in this country, and they think they're going to gain votes from it. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, when they overturned Roe v. Wade, before the 2022 election, I really believe that they thought, well, they'll get mad at first, but they'll get over it. Yeah. If they thought they were going to get over it, they've never been fucking married, because I suffer through the sins I committed in the 80s sometimes. They don't forget about it. They should not forget about it. And it's not just women, it's 70% of the country. So they took a beating in 2022. And if they think they forgot about it for 2024, they're sadly fucking mistaken. If nothing else happened to the Republicans, that one issue would take them down in 2024.
Oh, definitely. They can't, and they want to, they're doing everything they can. Besides that, they're doing everything they can to wash themselves with Donald Trump, and they can't do it. They're stuck with him. And and the regular Republicans, not part of the MAGA, they're beside themselves because they know that the final nail has been put in their coffin for the Republican Party. They're done. They'd be lucky to win an election in 20 years by all the things that have happened, and particularly after Donald Trump goes to prison. And anyone that says that he's not, you better get a reality check. Donald Trump's going to prison. There's no way around it. They'll figure out how to put him in prison. There's no way that they can't put him in prison.
Early on, I agreed with a lot of folks that said, yeah, a former president probably won't go to prison. But when all that came out, the egregious crimes, the corruption, the treason that he's done, people would always say we put him in jail, and then that'll be so divisive in this country. I think it's flipped now. I think if you don't hold him accountable, if you don't put him in jail, that's going to be damaging to the country. And you're going to have a lot of people in upheaval about that shit. So that whole situation is turned, and people will say to me, well, they never put a president in jail before. Well, no president has ever done what Donald Trump has done. These are different times, and they call for different measures. And that means Donald Trump, I mean, you can't do the things with documents and trying to overthrow the government without getting put in jail. I don't care who the fuck you are.
Well, all that's fake news, just so you know.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
all
I
fake
know.
news. But I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that. But when I say that he's going to prison, I mean that. But I don't think he's going to prison in the way that he's not going into Gen Pop. You know what I mean? They're not going to put him in prison with all these other. They're going to keep him segregated.
Yeah.
He's going to go to prison, but in some variation of that. But he's not going to be in Gen Pop where he's going to be around anybody. They're going to have to either construct something special for him, or he's going to be detained to wherever, Mar-a-Lago for life or whatever it is, but he's not getting out of it. And my brother was a naysayer for forever and ever. He says Trump's never going to be held accountable. Trump's there. He's going to get away with it. I'm going to leave the country. I'm like, why? I'm like, he's not getting away with it. I said, I guarantee you he's not getting away with it. And now, like, I kind of talk to him and show him what's going on. And now he's like, I believe you now. He said, yeah. I believe Donald Trump is going to go to prison. I told you, 2 years ago that he's going to go to prison. So I think even the Republicans with a reasonable mind are starting to realize that ship is beyond sunk. Like, he's done, and they're trying to wash their hands of him. Some Republicans that I talk to that have a half of a brain are like, I can't believe that I even voted for him in the first place after what's happened now. And I hope that keeps picking up momentum so that it kind of dispels the crazies. They need to be washed away with people, that have half a brain that are Republicans. So that's what I'm hoping for, is that we'll get some relief from people that finally, it might take till the point where that he actually gets incarcerated for some people to believe it, because they're so wrapped up in some of these conspiracy theories and stuff like that. And maybe not even some of them will believe it after the fact. They'll say it's all a movie and it's fake. And I mean, one of the creators on TikTok that I really like a lot is that Walt Masterson. And he kind of goes out and questions some of these people. And when I hear their answers, like, it's disturbing what they actually believe. It's disturbing. Like, I'm shocked, like, that someone would actually believe something so insane. So hopefully, once this actually goes through and he actually gets prosecuted, sentenced, and put in jail, hopefully things calm down. I think it's going to take a little time, but I'm hoping that that's going to be the linchpin thing that happens that calms this insane stuff down.
Yeah, it's the thing that disturbs me more than anything is that the alleged reasonable-minded Republicans, I thought that they would step away from him a long time ago. They've had opportunity after opportunity to step away from him. After he lost the election, they could have said, okay, forget Donnie, let's focus on getting some votes. But then Kevin McCarthy goes down and kisses his ass and tugs on his dick or whatever the fuck he did. And he made him more relevant and embraced him into the Republican Party. And that just brought him back. But every time I think that Republicans, the reasonable Republicans, are going to step away, they don't. And just the other day was the perfect example of that. The Republicans could have voted against a full MAGA fucking Speaker of the House, and they didn't, because they blinked. They were scared because they were looking stupid. They were looking stupid because they couldn't elect a Speaker of the House. So they blinked and thought they could slip this by. Now they're going to look worse because of who they elected.
Oh yeah, but you know what? It doesn't break my heart that Jim Jordan got embarrassed again. He just gets embarrassed and embarrassed and embarrassed and embarrassed. Ridiculous, his ridiculous, investigations that never amount to shit. Like he just embarrasses himself all the time. And at least this Johnson guy's half smart. He keeps his mouth shut, But Jim Jordan is just out there on top of the mountaintops coming up with all this bullshit. Hunter Biden's laptop, of course, that was a nothing burger. I just can't. I just wonder. Do you think that the people, the Republicans who are elected into Congress and in the House and Senate, do you think that they honestly wish that they could get away from Trump, but they won't admit it because he's still he's going to be the nominee? Do you think that they just won't walk away from him because he's going to be the nominee?
No, I think they're afraid of something. They're afraid of getting primaried. They're afraid of getting attacked by Donald Trump. In terms of Jim Jordan, I really think he's got some humiliation kink going on there, because that's just fucking weird. He keeps embarrassing himself at every fucking turn. Um, I don't know. We've got a lot of cowardly people on the Republican side, and because they are cowardly, they're pretty much sinking their party. Their party is pretty much destroyed. It bears no resemblance to what the Republican Party once was, and it can't last because they're running it into the ground. They're going to go over the cliff with Donald Trump, and then they're going to say, oh my God, how did that happen? And then they're going to have to start over. And too bad for them, because it's going to take 10 to 15 years.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that really, really pushed me over the edge about Donald Trump is when Mark Meadows, when he got in and took the plea deal, because Mark Meadows he is the top person that's in charge of that whole conspiracy. So if he flipped, he knows everyone that's involved, and he's going to testify against. So it would stand to reason to me that the House Republicans, and probably some of them in the Senate, Gates, Gosar, Grassley, Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're probably shitting themselves right now because Mark Meadows is going to rat every one of them out. So come down the road in maybe 2024, 2025, right in there, I imagine that more indictments are going to come out of DC for the insurrection. It would have to be if he's taken a deal already.
Well, yeah, and Jack Smith as much as kind of insinuated that there are some superseding indictments coming. I mean, let's face it, he only indicted Donald Trump for the January 6th situation, which is ridiculous because he's not the only one culpable in this situation. He did it for strategic reasons. He didn't want a bunch of people involved in the case against Donald Trump. There was a timeliness needed to getting him prosecuted and done before the election. So he decided to do that. There's going to be superseding indictments because there's more people involved. And Mark Meadows flipping, he not only is flipping on Donald Trump, he's flipping on every fucking buddy else because he was a conduit. Anybody who wanted to talk to Trump had to do it through Mark Meadows. So through phone calls, text messages, emails, they went to him, and then they went to Trump, and they went from Trump to Meadows back to them. So he's got text messages, he's got emails and conversations and knowledge of sitting members of Congress, Ginny Thomas, Roger Stone, the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, his kids, fucking everybody. So when he's flipping in this case, he's flipping on everybody. And when we do see those superseding indictments, it's not crazy to think that Meadows would have been one of those superseding indictments. The fact that they've announced that he flipped now tells me that maybe those superseding indictments are coming soon. I may be wrong about that, but they are coming. And sitting members of Congress, I think they already know. They've either gotten target letters or whatever, but they know what the fuck is up, and they're getting a little squirrely right at this point.
Well, do you remember, it must have been I'd say about a year ago, maybe a little more. There's a congressman from my state of Pennsylvania, Scott Perry. You obviously know who he is.
It's a piece of shit.
Yes, 100%. He's from central Pennsylvania, not where I live. So the FBI seized his cell phone, and I'm like thinking, that's curious, right? Well, according to Cassidy Hutchinson, that Scott Perry played a key role in Trump's plan for the insurrection. He played a key role in that. So I know Scott Perry's done for. Like, the fact that they seized his phone, I think the reason why they seized it is because the whole plan was on his phone.
Right.
And they're just waiting. They're not going to, Jack Smith is waiting on those indictments. He's bringing them because if he brings them now, it's going to mud up the whole thing. He wants to get through the stuff with Donald Trump, which I agree with you on. You kind of alluded to that before, but it's going to be interesting to see who goes down in that. It's going to be more people than everyone actually thinks. It's going to be a long list, I believe.
Oh, I think it will. And I think it will be a huge paradigm shift in politics in this country. I mean, you're probably not old enough to remember Watergate. And I was young at the time with Watergate, but that changed a lot of shit. I mean, we know the Presidential Records Act that Donald Trump thinks saves him, but doesn't. That came about because of Richard Nixon and was enacted in 78. This is going to change a lot of things. It's going to change the landscape of our politics, hopefully for the better, because it's going to make a lot of people accountable that thought they were untouchable. And hopefully that will put us in a situation where we have more honest politicians. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but hopefully they can get a little more honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think that once this comes out, and it's going to be a long process, but I think once it does, there's going to be more accountability. I hope that's what I'm hoping for. The scary part about it is, and you mentioned this months and months ago, that podcast Rachel Maddow did, that Ultra podcast,
right?
Of all conspiracy that the first America First committee did with the Nazis during World War II. That's eerily mirroring what is happening now. The only difference, I think, this time is that a lot of the people who were involved in that are not getting away with it.
Right.
They're not going to get away with it. A lot of people got away with it, but I think this time around, there's too much evidence. There's too much cell phones that link them to text messages, emails. There's just they couldn't take the evidence and destroy and burn the paperwork like they did back during World War II. There's too much electronic evidence against them to be able to hide it. There's no way to hide it.
Well, even more so, when you talk about that Ultra podcast, this was like in the 30s or something when this happened. And even Watergate, we didn't have access to information like we do now. It was easy for Jerry Ford to kind of shove things under the rug, not let everybody know how bad Richard Nixon was, and just say it's better for the country if I pardon him. And same with the Ultra podcast back in the 30s. We just won't tell anybody, and we'll keep this quiet. Otherwise, it's going to be embarrassing for a lot of people. They don't have that benefit now. We all know a lot of shit. They can't hide anything. They can't slip one by us or shove it under the rug. We know exactly what Donald Trump did. So if they want to be respected in this situation, they have to make them accountable. We know too much.
Oh yeah. And the other thing too, like I'm a little upset about gag orders on Donald Trump, because I want Donald Trump to talk and talk and talk and keep talking, because every time he opens his mouth, he incriminates himself even further. So yeah. I say no gag orders for Donald Trump. Just let him keep talking and talking. And eventually that evidence will keep piling up and keep piling up. and he'll see his conviction in no time.
Well, we can talk more about that with his civil trial, because I personally think that is going to be the first and most devastating thing Donald Trump uh, suffers, is that civil case, because it will turn him into a shell of what he once was, and when he goes to jail, he'll be diminished to nothing anyway. But I tell you what, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. I have listener TJ with me today. We're having a conversation about all the things political. And TJ, we'd be remiss if we don't bring up this tragedy in Maine. Started out in Lewiston, but it shut down the better part of the cities in Maine, which is a little weird because I was just in Maine a week ago, and I thought this was a quiet, sleepy little state, sleepy little town. I would have never imagined something like that could have happened.
Well, that's got to raise the hairs on the back of your neck. I mean, you were just there, what, 5, 6 days ago? Not, or maybe
Yeah,
less, or how long was it? About a week ago?
I
I
think I
mean,
went.
it's got to raise the hair.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh,
Yeah, I can't believe. I mean, 18 people were killed. I think 13 wounded. I saw it come across today. I was scrolling through some stuff through news, and they identified that killer. His name's Robert Card.
right.
He's still at large, and they've increased the amount of law enforcement to really get out and search for him. I mean, I can't understand the motivation why people would do something so horrible. I mean, this is the 36th, I believe it's the 36th mass shooting of this year. I mean, it's just
36,
something needs to change.
566 mass shooting in this year. 566 mass shootings this year in the United States. It's fucking crazy. More shootings than fucking days. It's unbelievable. And a lot of these don't make the news because there's maybe 2 people shot or 3 people shot or whatever. But the important thing, I was hearing a stat that in 2022, 29 people were killed in Maine from violence. In one 15-minute period in 2023, 18 people died and 50 to 60 people injured. I was talking about this guy. Once you know the details of this guy, I guess it's not so hard to imagine that this would happen. He is a firearms instructor. He's with the Army Reserves or something. He's got some mental issues. He hears voices. And he had an AR-15 in a state that offers permitless carry. Who knew that would go badly? I mean, Jesus Christ. If you got to have AR-15s, at least keep them out of the hands of nutcases.
Right. Well, I wonder that if he had a history of mental health, like if he had a history of being 302'd or something like that, if they check anything like that in the state of Maine, who knows? Like they probably don't check that stuff. And
Right.
that's the kind of thing that needs to change. These people that have mental health issues, that has to be incorporated somehow into background checks. There's a box on there that you check that says, have you, had mental health issues in the past? Anyone, no one's going to check yes.
No.
No one's going to check that box yes. I mean, they need to somehow incorporate records with the background checks. So if you've been, into a mental health facility, you're not going to get that firearm until you can prove that you're not a danger to anyone.
Well, hell, people lie about their height and weight on their driver's license. They aren't going to think twice about saying, no, I'm not fucking crazy.
Hey,
But
Donald Trump doesn't lie about his height and weight.
yeah, I think he does a little bit. It's such a tragedy, and so something like this happens and you go back to Congress and you say, what are you going to do? And of course, they do nothing. I found it interesting. There is one representative in the House who is from Maine who said, I apologize for not doing something about this earlier. I'm going to change my stance and work to get stronger gun laws. He's a Republican. Well, that's nice to say, but actually do something. And frankly, you know, if this happens in your home state and all of a sudden you get this light bulb over your head, oh, maybe we should do something. Are you telling me Columbine didn't turn on a light? That Sandy Hook didn't turn on a light? It took you getting bit in the ass and having your own constituents killed before you realized this was not a good idea to have free and easy gun access to fucking anybody that wants it. You know, I appreciate the guy saying it. I'm not convinced he's going to do anything about it, but you're a little late to the fucking party.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. And here's the thing about me, like, I'm a gun owner. I've been a gun owner all my life, you know, and if I want to buy a gun, I can. Pennsylvania is easy. I mean, you fill out a form, you sign the bottom, they call in your name and number and your social security number on the system, and in 2-3 minutes it kicks it back, yes or no. That's all you have to do. And I'm a gun owner, and I believe that I have no issue with having a 7-day waiting period or something like that. Like, if I want to buy a gun, I don't mind waiting. If I have to wait a week or whatever, that's no big deal to me. Like, no. And people make such a big stink about it. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I believe in common sense. I mean, a lot of people think about, any situation where you get pissed at somebody and you're really pissed at them and you're kind of shaking and you're mad. Some people take that to the next level and say, well, I'm going to go buy a gun and I'm going to kill this motherfucker. Right. Yeah. So giving people a chance to calm down or rethink things, or I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. It's not infringing on the Second Amendment. It's just common logical sense to keep people from making poor decisions in a split second. So there's common sense things that can be done. Let's face reality. We can't take all the guns off the street. That's not ever going to happen. But we can produce common sense things like a mandatory waiting period or something like that. Or, if you're a collector, you can have a preferred, status when you purchase guns, so you don't have to wait that, something like that. But there needs to be some common sense stuff that's put into place, because it's getting way crazy out of hand.
Well, I think the most disconcerting situation tied to this story is that this guy's still on the loose. They have yet to catch him. What's it, going on 2 days now, and they still don't have any idea where he is. So people in that town and surrounding towns are scared to death. Kids aren't going to school. You're having people have to shelter in place and not go outside. They'd probably be safe. I don't know if this guy took off out of town. That would have been a smart thing, or if he offed himself, which would have been nice. But the fact is, they don't know until they catch this guy. And this guy wasn't very cagey about who he was. I mean, his face showed up on these cameras. We know who he is. It's Robert Card. We know what his background is, but they still cannot find him. I don't know what the fuck is going on there. It's surprising to me that it's gone on this long without being able to catch him.
Yeah, well, here's the other part of it too. Like, we brought up this a couple of minutes ago about he had mental health issues. Well, Ronald Reagan dismantled mental health in this country. I don't know if people know that, but he was like the final demise of mental health at the level that it was. And that's one of the things that needs to grow. But when you come back to the Republicans and say, I want to fund mental health. Oh, no, we can't afford that. We can't afford any type of social programs to help people. It's better just to not help them and let them live on the street and commit acts of violence because they're not getting medications that they need. That makes way more sense than, cutting maybe $6-7 billion out of our $290 billion military budget to help fund mental health. I mean, that would be a travesty to cut a little sliver off to help people out. That's how they feel about it, and it's disgusting.
It is.
There is there is another story that it didn't get a lot of press, but I caught it earlier today. And there was a shooting in Nashville, and it was a son of the police chief. He shot two police officers that were trying to stop him for some reason, and he shot them both and took off. And later on, that either it was that day or the following day, the police chased him down, and he ended up dying from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Yeah.
Luckily, the police officers that got shot were just slightly injured, and they were treated and released. But again, the story led to the fact that this police chief's son, who shot two police officers, had a history of mental health issues. So how much further is it going to go before these people come to the realization that we have to do something about mental health in this country?
Well, nothing's going to be done about mental health or gun control until after the 2024 election. The Republicans just won't do anything about it in the House, and this new speaker is not going to be in favor of doing those sorts of things. They're fine with people going out with semi-automatic weapons and killing people, but they believe they should put LGBTQ folks in jail for their personal lives. That's who these people are. They don't want to help the country. They don't want to help the people. It's all about enriching themselves, and it's getting tiring, and they're being exposed for who they are. At some point, this has got to fucking change. And unfortunately, it's not going to change until the Democrats get rid of the Republicans, take all power away from them so they can actually get something done.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, a $2 trillion tax break for the rich didn't do us any favors either. And it's funny, all the Trump-la-fucks were like, oh, we're getting more money in our check, and because Donald Trump did us a favor and gave us a tax break, and they don't realize that they got duped.
They got duped.
Their tax break was temporary, and the tax breaks for the rich were permanent. And then it added 35% to our national debt.
Right.
Which I'd like to bring this up just real fast. Like today, I caught another news story that the gross domestic product of the country, the GDP, for the third quarter is up to 4.9%.
Right.
Which outpaced every quarter since like September of 2021. So any of these Trump-la-fucks that say that the economy's failing under Joe Biden, that's a total outright lie.
It is. It's just a flat out lie.
They just keep getting force fed all this bullshit, and they just regurgitate it. They don't actually look and read or actually follow anything that's realistic news. They just regurgitate what they see on Facebook and what they see on TikTok, because they follow all these people that are just trying to get a rise out of them and get clicks so they get paid.
Right.
I mean, it's clickbait baloney, and they buy right into it, hook, line, and sinker, instead of taking the time to, what they always say, do your own research. Right. They don't actually ever do their own research, because if they did, they wouldn't believe any of that baloney that they're telling everyone and spreading misinformation around.
Everything you hear coming out of the media and out of these Trump-la-fucks has one source, and that one source is Donald Trump. And we know Donald Trump is a pathological liar. So you maybe should check your source before you believe the shit he's saying. And since we're talking about Donald Trump, we were talking about some of the court cases. One of the things I truly believe is, over and above all these criminal cases, this civil lawsuit with Letitia James against Donald Trump, I think, is going to be the most devastating for him, certainly emotionally, because he identifies as rich and powerful and have property and has prestige. This one case is going to strip him of all of those things, and he will be nothing more than a broken man. At that point, convicting him of criminal activity won't be a problem, because he won't be able to do shit.
Do you remember the picture I sent you on the DM about the Trump hotel in Las Vegas?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I sent you the picture of the hotel, and I said the the caption I wrote underneath it was "soon to be property of the taxpayers of New York."
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, and that's
And
true.
that right, he's going to lose. Now, who knows if he actually owns that? I never looked into it to see if he actually owns that hotel or if he just has his name on it, because that's the bullshit that, all of his cult members believe, is that he's some great businessman and he owns, Trump Tower and Mar-a-Lago and, his hotel in Las Vegas and his golf course in Scotland. But like a lot of the properties in that he have investors in them too. So he doesn't own them all free and clear. Sometimes he just gets paid to put his name on things. So I'd be
Right.
curious to see. My point is, I'll be curious to see in the end how much actual assets he has. He says he's a billionaire. I'd be stretched to think that he could pay the 250 million with the assets that he has now.
No, I
What do you
agree.
think?
I absolutely agree. And when he can't pay it, they'll start taking property, and actually his business licenses are going by the wayside. We know that's going to happen. He can't come out of this very well, but you have to understand, when you're dealing with a guy who's a narcissist like this, losing all his money is one thing, but losing the perception that he's rich and powerful is probably more damaging to his psyche than anything. That's what destroys Donald Trump. When you take away everything and now you're just some dipshit shitting your pants walking down Fifth Avenue with nothing in your fucking pockets and no hopes and dreams in the future. When you take that away from Donald Trump, he's fucking done. That's all he really is. And when you take it away from him, all you leave is a pulsing orange bag of shit. That's all that's left.
Well, there won't be anyone left for him to bully. He's
No.
done. I mean, he the one thing that he had, he could push people around. And then I think right now he's really losing his mind. And there's, a couple things I saw in the news reports, which I don't always believe, because he's been misspeaking a lot more than he's always misspoke. Let's not get it fucked up. But he's been saying some crazy stuff, like he beat Obama, and like, and I sometimes those things get taken out of context because I didn't watch the whole clip or whatever. But in any event, I think it's finally sinking into Donald Trump that he's done. He's destroyed. I think he's finally coming to, and that's why he's kind of being more and more unhinged. Like his comments and outside the courthouse are becoming more and more unhinged. And then he just got rung up with another fine from Judge Ergonon.
Yeah.
So I think that him being in that courtroom, he's finally coming to the realization that he's done. He's destroyed. And it's just a matter of time now before he's completely put under.
Well, he's
think
certainly delusional. I mean, he sat there in the courtroom watching Michael Cohen testify, and this is the worst experience for a narcissist, when somebody is putting the evidence in your face and you can't say anything. You just have to sit there and deal with it. And of course, he gets angry. He stands up and storms out. I'm guessing he waddled out, but the Secret Service was a little surprised by it, and they go running behind him. And then he goes outside, something he heard in the case, in the trial. And he goes outside and says, well, we basically won the case. The judge should dismiss it now. Like that's going to do anything. What Donald Trump fails to understand is he already lost the case. We're not working on whether you win or lose the case. You've already lost the case. It's how much you're going to pay. So you didn't win, Donnie. You can't win, Donnie, but he will still go out there. And somehow he thinks if he can convince people, it's true. I mean, that's what narcissists do. They have something come out of their mouth, and in their mind, it's like words directly from Jesus. If they said it, it's true, even though it's outlandish. And Donald Trump has not yet realized that with his words, or his bullying tactics, they aren't working anymore. And he just doesn't know how to comprehend that. He's done this his whole life, and now it's not working. He's confused. He's scared. He's running scared right now.
Do you think that maybe there's something else to that as well? Do you think that maybe he thinks if he goes out and spews this nonsense and he makes people, his base of people, his toothless Trump-la-fuck base, makes them believe that? Do you think that he thinks that maybe there's a chance that his base will do something crazy like they did on January 6th to try to disrupt or stop or help him? Because he's already begged Congress for help. Now I wonder if he's trying to appeal to those people that will die for him. And let's face it, they will die for him, some of these people.
And I hope they do.
I wonder if, yeah, I don't wish death on anyone, but I wonder if he thinks that if he stirs these people up enough that are his base, that they'll somehow do something, or it'll be, it'll be relevant and it'll overturn, they'll come and try to stop the court case. And I wonder if he believes that, like in his delusional mind, if he actually believes that's something that would work.
I think he believes he's smart enough and strong enough to talk his way out of anything. As of the last couple of years, we've seen that he's been able to talk his way out of nothing, but he thinks he can talk his way out of everything. That's always been what works for him. And right now he's a little confused. Do I think he's wanting to whip up these dumb Trump-la-fucks to do something violent? Yeah. I mean, he's proven that he's okay with that. He's okay with violence if it's in support of him. I think I just don't know how he doesn't understand that it's not going to work. It didn't work when he was indicted in Manhattan. It didn't work when he was indicted in Miami. It didn't work when he was indicted in Washington, D.C. I think that strategy is out the window. These people are too scared. They think they're all going to go to jail, and they will. And frankly, when we're talking about Trump-la-fucks, there's not enough of them to cause any damage when there's real pushback with Joe Biden in office and the National Guard there. Those people will be wiped out. So they know this, and they're not going to do it. Donald Trump's hoping against hope that he can pull something out of his ass and win. But you and I know that's not possible, but he's not ready to give up because he's a narcissist. He's the greatest human on earth.
He believes that. Of course he does.
Of course he does.
I would love to be a fly on the wall when he's in the room with his lawyers and his lawyers are talking to him about how the court case is going to go. Because what could they possibly tell him? I mean, they have to tell him what he wants to hear. I'm sure that is what they do, right? Oh, we're going to fight. We're going to do. But they have to be thinking, like, we're going to look like fools. We're going to look like fools because Donald Trump has basically admitted to doing everything.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe, history's not going to be kind to these people who are his attorneys. I mean, they're going to look like idiots from now until eternity. But it must be interesting to be in the room with Trump and when he's meeting with his lawyers and like listening to them tell him what they want to hear, what Trump wants to hear. I mean, I don't know how they can do it with a clear conscience or a straight face. Tell him that, oh yeah, we're gonna try this motion and do this, and we're gonna get you off. Like, no reasonable smart lawyer would actually believe that Donald Trump is going to get off on anything. I mean, the evidence is so clear, and we haven't even seen half of it. Just the stuff that we've seen so far, it's clear that he's a criminal.
Yeah. Well, one of the ways I thought about this, how do lawyers take these strategies that are absolutely ridiculous, that may get them sanctioned or disbarred or whatever? Why do they do that? And I explained it to somebody before how I think it's going on here. And it's a bad situation. When I was a young man, when I was a little boy, and I had a father who was a narcissist who was a lot like Donald Trump, You were so afraid of getting dad's wrath, you would tell him whatever or do whatever just to avoid the wrath. And if you saw him going down that rabbit hole, no, with me, I would do things that I knew would pull him out of the rabbit hole in a different direction. And I honestly think that many of the people that work for Donald Trump are in that same situation. They're worried about daddy's wrath and they'll do anything to avoid it, even if it's detrimental to themselves. It's a sad state of affairs that they would be willing to do that. But it's almost a psychological thing. They're so afraid of Donald Trump because he's volatile, because he will lose his shit, and he will threaten them with all kinds of horrible things, getting fired and destroying him in the press. I think a lot of people are worried about him going to the press and talking shit about anybody because they feel like that would destroy their lives. So instead, they destroy their lives in the long run by sticking with Donald Trump, carrying that stink of Donald Trump until they die. Now, Donald Trump's going to be 78. He isn't going to be around long enough to really suffer. But when you get people like Jenna Ellis, who's in her 30s, she's got another 40 years to live with that stink, and it's not going to be good.
What'd you think about those crocodile tears in court from Jenna Ellis? I kind of think the tears weren't real. I think Rudy Giuliani was standing behind her, farting on her again, so she had tears from Rudy Giuliani.
Well, you know, I've said this before, not just about politicians or lawyers. I've known people in my life that were absolutely horrific people. They bullied people. They made people cry. And then when they come across me, they really don't like me because I have the audacity to push back while everybody else just folds up. I had somebody that said, well, Mike's got a really big opinion. Well, so do you, bitch. You just run into somebody who's bigger and badder than you are, and now you don't like it. And then they start to cry. And then I start to laugh because as far as I'm concerned, if you're somebody who makes somebody cry and I make you cry, I think that's a joyous occasion. And that's how Jenna Ellis was. She seemed so certain and so bold every time she was on TV. I know this, and this is this, and this is this. And then she comes out and cries and says, well, if I knew then what I know now, I would have never worked for Donald Trump. Bullshit. You knew after the election, and it was proven it was not stolen. You knew then that it wasn't stolen. You chose to stick with it for your own benefit, for your own Lord and Savior. So fucking hold off your crocodile tears because they don't mean shit. I have no sympathy for that bitch. I'm just sorry she was able to plead out. She should go to jail.
Yeah. I mean, even with Sidney Powell's plea bargain, at least she was, not crying the blues. She knew that she's cooked, she's done. She knew she had to take that deal or she was facing a long time in prison. And she did it, respectfully with a straight face, no baloney, because she knows she's guilty. And she knows that she told lie after lie after lie. Her and Rudy Giuliani both did it. And he's probably next on the chopping block, but I have a feeling that Rudy Giuliani's not getting any deal. And if he does, it's not going to be much of one. Rudy Giuliani is going to go to prison with Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's one of the top guys. He's going to go. But don't give Sidney Powell too much credit. And don't count on her plea deal holding tight. Because I don't know if you heard about this. There is a organization who puts out information, and it's owned and operated by Sidney Powell. I don't know if she wrote this, but in this publication or in this post from a company or from an organization that's owned by Sidney Powell, it came out yesterday saying that Sidney Powell was coerced into pleading out that the election was stolen, and she's just repeating all the shit she believes before pleading out. Now, if I'm Fani Willis and I see this, that whether Sidney Powell herself said it or her organization said it, suggesting that Fani Willis coerced her into pleading out, I'm pulling that deal. fuck you. You can go to jail. And that could happen in this case.
Wow. I didn't see that. I'm gonna have to look into that. But yeah, that's if that happened and she said that or her people said that. Well, I guess if she condoned her people saying that, because sometimes people go rogue and do things that aren't sanctioned by the people that work with them, which I understand that. But if she orchestrated that or she herself said that, then yeah, I think Fani Willis should throw the book at her and say, hey, your deal's done. You know, there's plenty of other witnesses that'll cooperate, and they, Mark Meadows is going to be one of them.
Right.
So, I mean, he's the kingpin of the whole thing, really. I mean, he was with Donald Trump the entire time. He was on that call, I think, if I remember correctly.
He was
on the call with Trump. So he was a witness to the entire thing. They don't need Sidney Powell. Why would they need her?
No, I was actually disappointed that they took a plea deal from her because she is unethical. She's a pathological liar, and she was kind of a linchpin in this thing too. It's fine to get the lower level people to plead out. They should have fucking nailed her too. And I hope, whether she said it or not, it came from an organization that she runs, and the buck stops with her. Now, if that is a mistake by a rogue person, then isn't it reasonable she come out and go, whoa, 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 hold on. I don't know who wrote that, but I don't believe that. I said what I said and I stand by it. But if she doesn't, and she's trying to play that two sides game, she needs to have that plea deal taken away.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's just a slap in the face to Fani Willis and the other prosecutors involved with the case, because she's just thumbing her nose at them. And if I was a prosecutor and someone did that to me, I'd be like, your deal is done. Absolutely, 100%.
And if I was going to slap somebody in the face, there's 100 people I would slap in the face before Fani Willis. I would not fuck with Fani Willis.
Well, I think that if she did that, she learned that from Donald Trump, because Donald Trump seems to try to slap in the face, judges and witnesses and anyone he can without ever thinking about the consequences of his actions, because he thinks he's just going to walk away and it's not going to be a problem. But that's not going to be the case if this is true about her. There's probably going to be implications if she said that and it's true. So we'll see what happens. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Now regarding Donald Trump, we know that Judge Chutkin in Washington, D.C. put a stay on his gag order so he could appeal it. And some people were disappointed by that. Now, other people are suggesting that maybe she's kind of setting a trap for him just to show how bad he is, so that there's no chance of it being appealed, or maybe he'll catch him in something. But apparently Jack Smith has had about a fucking enough, because Jack Smith issued a motion because of the stuff he was saying in New York and the way he was talking about whatever he was talking about. The motion that Jack Smith sent to Chutkin was, we need to pull that stay, take that stay off, and add more shit to the gag order because of this, and this. He's really good at listing and quoting all the things that Donald Trump said. Now, Chutkin's going to have to answer to that. Whether she'll pull the stay or not, I don't know. But at some point, Donald Trump is going to be accountable in a big way for these gag orders. I understand what they're doing. They're ramping it up. They don't really want to put him in jail, so they make a bigger fine or whatever. Eventually, they're going to have to do something, because Donald Trump will not stop talking under any circumstances. His own people have said that.
Do you think that Jack Smith is trying to get that amended because there's fear that Donald Trump is going to say so much bullshit it's going to pollute the jury pool?
I don't think that's the case. I mean, when we're talking about Washington, D.C., that jury pool is going to be pretty one-sided anyway. Nobody in D.C. is going to like Donald Trump. That's a blue area. Same goes for New York. I know he's trying to do that. I just don't think he'll be successful in it. I mean, let's be honest. In the last 2.5 years, name one thing Donald Trump has been successful at. Nothing. He fails at every
Indictments.
turn. Yeah, well, he's got the record on indictment, so I'm bully for him. But all these strategies are out of desperation. I've said this before. Donald Trump only reacts out of emotions. He doesn't think about what he's doing. So he always puts himself in a bad situation. Like the situation in Washington, D.C., the fact that Mark Meadows flipped on him and he was the chief of staff, he was the guy in between him and everybody else, that pretty much ends that fucking case. You have the chief of staff testify against you, you're fucking done. I mean, he can't win that fucking thing.
Right. And all the other staff is going to go down with him.
Yeah.
Peter Navarro's, I mean, I'm willing to bet that there's probably going to be another indictment coming for Roger Stone with January 6th. There's a lot of people that are going down with the future indictments.
I will predict this. Roger Stone will try to save his soul because he only cares about himself. And whether he'll get the opportunity or not, I don't know. But he will flip in an instant to save his ass. He got lucky by getting a pardon from Donald Trump. Otherwise, he'd be in jail currently. But this next time around, there's nobody to pardon him. And he's smart enough to know that he is implicated in a lot of shit around January 6th. He'd be wise to take a deal if offered. But, that's something I always hear people say, well, this guy will take a deal or Donald Trump will take a deal. It sounds like people believe that deals are unlimited. They are not. Donald Trump is clearly the target. He's got nobody to flip on. He's not going to get a deal. There's no way. I mean, this is too big a trial, maybe the biggest trial in the history of this country. You don't think Jack Smith and Fonnie Willis aren't going to want to play it out? They sure the fuck are. They don't want any question about what happened here. They want these trials to go forward, and Donald Trump will not get a deal.
No way. You just said it. There's no one for him to flip on. He's the target of the whole thing. And there's a lot of people that they're going to save their ass instead of go to prison for Donald Trump. Have you watched those videos of Roger Stone when he's being like deposed by the attorneys?
Yeah.
I watched those videos and they're hard to watch. The feeling I get from watching that video of Roger Stone is that he's an inherently evil person.
Oh, no question.
Like the look on, like, I think he's more evil than Donald Trump, to be truthful. Like, Donald Trump's a useful idiot for,
right,
authoritarians across the world, and he's not smart. Roger Stone is straight up evil.
And smart.
It's a hard and smart on top of it. Donald Trump's an idiot. He's nothing, smart wise compared to Donald Trump. But yeah, it's hard to watch that. Like, you can tell that Roger Stone is an evil person, and he's only going to do what's in his best interest.
Right. I mean, with Donald Trump, he's run into somebody with Roger Stone who is almost identical to Donald Trump, but Roger Stone is far smarter. Roger Stone will throw Donald Trump under the bus in an instant. You heard it in that documentary. When he didn't get a pardon or whatever, he threw Donald Trump under the bus on that documentary. He's not going to think twice. He's going to be like a cockroach and save his life, and he doesn't care who gets hurt in the process.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right on that. And I'm just waiting and counting down the days, till the trial starts for Jack Smith in Washington, D.C., because I know that they're not going to have cameras. And people keep bringing this up about the cameras. They're not going to allow the cameras in the federal court. People are on TikTok and stuff saying, oh, they're going to make a special exception. They're not going to do that. They're not going to allow that to happen. Now, will they allow some of the transcripts to be published, yeah, they'll probably, do that as quickly as they come out. But don't get your hopes up for having cameras in the courtroom. But the
No,
nice thing is that doesn't hold true for Georgia. So in Georgia, we get to see the whole shit show right live on television. So it'll be great.
well, in terms of Washington, D.C., there are some media outlets have sued to try to get it on TV. Now, under normal circumstances, I would say, yeah, it's impossible. They aren't going to do that. But these are special circumstances, and they can make the argument that it is for the betterment of the country to be able to see this. I don't know if they'll get it from DC or not. But what's going to happen in Georgia? It's going to be on TV. That is going to be enough to destroy Donald Trump. I mean, people are saying, what if he doesn't get convicted by this or that? The bottom line is he's got 91 felonies to date. He's got more coming. He only needs one or two to go away forever. The idea of him running the table on 91 felonies, just not possible. He's going to get nailed multiple times, more than one or two times. So he's done. There's no question in my mind that Donald Trump is not going to be able to slip away from anything. He is fucking done. And if he has half a brain, he understands that. And he better be getting himself ready to spend some time in some kind of lockup, whatever it is.
So let me ask you this. We'll fast forward to the future in, let's say, 2026.
Okay.
What do you think all these Trump-based people, after they see all the convictions, because like you just said, there's no way out for Donald Trump. He's going to get convicted. He's going to go to prison. What do you think that these people will say or do after they see all this unfold in front of them?
I think the moderates and the conservatives in the Republican Party, the supposed reasonable-minded people, will finally have courage to step away from it. They will be able to discount it, and they aren't afraid of being primaried and all that stuff. I think the Trump-lefucks, the base, the maybe 25, 30%, maybe less than that, I don't think you'll ever turn them. They will constantly believe in it, but they will do what they did prior to 2015. They will hide under their rocks because they're going to get nothing but ridiculed and laughed at. So they'll go under their rocks and talk amongst themselves. They're racist and sexist and misogynistic and anti-Semitic shit. And they'll never go away. I mean, that's one thing I've said, in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up, people don't understand how racism and anti-Semitism was accepted. It was absolutely accepted. Somebody said the N-word, no big deal back in those days. But you would never hear them say it in polite company or in the face of, unless you're dealing with a heavy core racist. It was all underground. Donald Trump comes out, makes it okay, makes it cool to be racist again. And that's when they bubbled to the top like a fucking fever blister. So I think they'll just, you're not going to change these people's minds, but they will go in hiding and you won't hear much from them again. I think that's what ultimately will happen.
Well, I agree with that, but I think on top of that, they're going to keep saying forever and ever, no matter what the outcome is. We know what the outcome is, but if he gets convicted on 87 to 91 charges or whatever, they're going to say it was Joe Biden weaponizing the DOJ. It was a frame. It was a hoax. There's no evidence. They're never going to believe any of that. They're never going to ever face reality that they were wrong. They can't face reality that they're wrong.
And at that point, so what? So what? They don't matter. They don't matter anymore.
But we'll go back to this real quick. Earlier, you brought up Richard Nixon. And of course, you said you were young during the time Nixon was president. But and I wish that I should probably look at this, but do you think that the same thing happened during that time where there was these hardcore 25% of people that couldn't believe that Richard Nixon did all these things, even though he resigned, because the GOP went to him and said, "Hey, you got to get out of here or else." Do
Yeah,
you think that during that time, the same thing that we have going on today?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the difference we had with Richard Nixon is that when he was forced to resign, it was done by Republicans. They could see the writing on the wall. And the times were different. They knew that it was going to go badly for the Republicans if they didn't do something. But even after he was out, there were still people that supported him, that they were just pretty much muffled. At one point, and this will happen to Donald Trump too, at one point, if they come out every year with the most hated people in the country, he'd always be in the top two for years after the Watergate thing. I mean, he was destroyed. Later in years, people settled down and they forgot a little, and they considered him a statesman. But you got to understand, there's a big difference between Richard Nixon and Donald Trump. Richard Nixon, as president, kind of knew what he was doing and actually accomplished some things. What he actually did was maybe 10% of what Donald Trump did, but he did some positive things for the country while he was in. He was hated because he was found out, and he lied and he cheated and stuff. Donald Trump's in a much different situation because he did far worse things to this country. Not only far worse for a president, far worse than anybody's done in this country. I mean, Donald Trump is a pretty prolific criminal when you look at all the shit he's done. Name one person that's done as much as he has, and I can't think of one person, the most egregious criminal. But there will still be people who support him, but he will become a pariah in this country. And I've said that all along. He'll become a pariah by the vast majority of people, and he will be miserable, and he will be remembered as a piece of shit in history. He will.
Well, that's the part I love about it the most, because that's the thing that will destroy him the most. That's the
Absolutely.
thing that will kill him, is people not to worship and idolize him. That's what he yearns for, is people that admire and all the power and the worship. I mean, because these people worship him. These cult members worship him every single day. And they're just, and they go off and they're unhinged, and they think Donald Trump is coming back into power. It's just crazy. And ultimately he's going to end up in prison and dead broke and absolutely nothing. And he's just going to be thrown to the side, and that's going to destroy him. I think that will probably physically kill him when it comes to that point.
I do too. I knowing narcissists as I have, when you take all that away from them, it does destroy them. I've known a couple of narcissists, one my father, and I know the arc to narcissist. It starts out, they rise very quickly. People buy their bullshit, but people who are close to them realize it's all bullshit. So they never have any real close friends. They bully whoever they're going to bully, but then they start to spiral downward, and they crash, and they all kind of end up the same way. My father, for example, he was a very charismatic guy. He was very successful in his business. He made a lot of money for our neighborhood anyway, not like billions, but he made a lot of money for the times. And when he died a year or so ago, when he died, he was in a 1-bedroom apartment with very little furniture, and he died alone sitting in his recliner chair, sick as shit. That's how it always ends up. It never ends well for a narcissist. They always crash and burn, and Donald Trump will do the same. He'll probably fall down on the sidewalk in front of Trump Tower, shit his pants, throw up, convulse, and die right on the spot in the most ugly way you could possibly imagine. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I think that probably at the point where he goes to prison, that's going to be the end of him. I just, like, there was that interview with Chris Christie, and Donald Trump said to him, or Chris Christie was referring to, as a prosecutor sending people to prison, and Donald Trump said to him, "I could never do that. I could never do that." And that's a real fear for Donald Trump. And I think that he's coming to terms with the fact that this is reality and I'm going to prison, regardless of, the bullshit that my lawyers are telling me. I think I'm going to prison. He doesn't say that, publicly. He has to, play the tough guy because that's his narcissistic behavior.
Right.
But I think he's starting to come to terms with the fact that this is a reality for him, that he's going to be in prison for a long time. And his kids, have you noticed you haven't seen his kids around too much? I mean,
No.
Don Jr., he gets on his coke rage on, wherever he is, and he off some stupid stuff. But you haven't seen Taylor Hyde of Ivanka, and you haven't really seen Eric Trump or Jared Kushner. I wonder why that is. Because they know Donald Trump is done and they want to get as far away from him as they possibly can.
Yeah, but they have the stink of Donald Trump on them permanently. They will have to live as the relatives of the worst human in history, and that's what Donald Trump will be considered, the worst human in history, because he is. The thing about narcissists, the one thing all narcissists have is that they are control freaks. They have to control everything. That's what Donald Trump has always done in business. That's why he bullies people. He wants control. He wants dirt on people. He wants control. But he's learning a big lesson right now because he's going into court. He has no control. And this is freaking him the fuck out. The no control thing is confusing to him. It's scary to him. And he does not know what to do.
No, that doesn't compute with him at all when he's made a career out of destroying other people by, not he's put dozens of contractors out of business by not paying them and bullying them and hanging them up in court for so long that it actually puts them out of business. He's done that for so long with so many different people that he thought he could take on the government and he could push back on them and think that he'd get away with the things he got away with. And now he's learning the lesson that he's not bigger than the federal government. He's not bigger than the government in the state of Georgia. And quite honestly, I think that this is going to expand because I wouldn't be surprised if attorney generals from Arizona and Pennsylvania and Michigan start popping out indictments for him too. I think they're just holding back because there's no way he could go to court. Right. I mean, he has too many court cases as it is. There's no way he could even go to court. Or maybe that, I don't know if this would be true or not, but maybe the attorney generals of my state and those states that I mentioned, maybe that they're just satisfied with the fact that he's getting prosecuted by all the others. So yeah, I guess that remains.
There's only so much piling on that can be done. That's why I've said Alvin Bragg seemed like a prime prospect for a criminal indictment. I mean, he criminally charged the company and the CFO. He got 17 felony fraud charges, convictions against his company. Now we got this lawsuit about all the things he did. It would only make sense that New York would come out and we'll go, oh, we better get him criminally too because of all the shit found out in this lawsuit. But again, some people might look at it as just piling on and kind of pointless because you can only put the fuck in jail for so long.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But I wouldn't be surprised if a few more come out, and they can't wait too long. I mean, because I would imagine that in some states, there probably are statutes of limitations for certain types of crimes, just so they can't wait forever. But maybe they're just kind of stalling to wait because he's going to be, how is he going to campaign for president? He's going to be busy in court from now until the election. I mean, what's he going to do? I mean,
well, not only is he going to be busy in court, but all his money is going to legal defense. He's got no money to campaign with. It's all going to his lawyers. So that's why I'm saying he's not even going to be the nominee. He's going to play this out as long as he can because he thinks it protects him. But he's really in no position to be candidate. And I'll be honest with you, the Republicans mostly don't want him as the candidate.
Well, they're stuck with him. They supported him and now they're stuck with him. Yeah. And about his campaign, when he announced to be president, or the run for president rather, when he announced his campaign, all the money that he's collecting from that point on is considered a campaign contribution.
Right.
Now there's a lot of rules and laws about how you can and can't spend your money with campaign contributions. And as far as I know, because I've been involved with a number of political campaigns, him spending that money on legal fees for his criminal defense, that's illegal.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that no one's, I mean, I saw one story about it, but I'm surprised no one's going after him yet over that, because he's funding his lawyers with campaign contributions, which is clearly a crime.
Right. Well, we know that Jack Smith has some people investigating that very same situation. He has some issues too with campaign fundraising and misuse of money. So that's just one of many things that people are looking into, and you may see some indictments on that from Jack Smith as well. So Donald Trump is simply done. He can't talk his way out of this at this point. He's too fucking deep. He's down the hole, and he just keeps digging himself deeper. Well, TJ, we're going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for coming in. It's always great to hear from you in the DMs and have you come on the show. It's been a while since you've last been on the show, so don't stay away so long. I enjoy doing the shows with the listeners, so you're welcome anytime.
Great. Yeah, I had a great time, and I won't make it so long in between times I come on the podcast moving forward. I've just been busy, you know.
No, I know you got shit to do. You got a life. You introduced me to your wife earlier before we went on, and tell her she can come on too with you, or alone without you. I don't give a fuck. I'm open to talking to anybody. If she's married to you, well, she needs a break.
Well, she's a listener, so she'd probably be happy to come on the show.
Well, perfect. Tell her she's welcome anytime. All right. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day. TJ, thank you very much. And we will talk to you tomorrow.